Me and my little friend today are going to cover oral piercings. Everything but the bites. We're not going to do bites today. We'll do those tomorrow in oral piercing groupings. But today we're going to cover kind of the foundation of every one of those. Coming up next on New to Piercing, episode number 8. For those who are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you find them useful and helpful, but you may not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and I operate the Axiom Body Piercing studio located right here inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo in the lovely city of Des Moines, if I didn't mention that already. What I'm going to talk about today is, and we're going to go through the anatomy and placement and what we look for and etc. for piercings that are in this general area or inside the mouth. Now, this is the foundation. Most of these piercings are basically, if you multiply them by 2, turn into bites. The next episode I'll do well beyond bites. That should be coming out in the next week or so. So let's start out with the most common of all oral piercings, the lip piercing. Lip piercings are done below this natural thick ridge. If you pinch down right there, right in this area, you'll notice there's kind of a flat, square, rectangular kind of border of sorts there. Done directly below that, in straight to match the curvature of that tissue. These can be done pretty much anywhere on the lower lip. Usually done to start out with studs. Labret studs are what I generally suggest, or labret, depending on who you talk to. These are also referred to as labret or labret piercings. They're all basically the same. Back in the day, we used to determine which was which by labrets were right dead center in the center of the lower mouth, right below the, generally kind of this crevice that we all have where it kind of curves outward. Now that's referred to as a lobret. It's basically the same piercing. As far as anatomy, what we're looking for is how much the mouth kind of curves outward to make sure there's room back there. Also, if we're going to be able to place it either above the gum line or below the gum line. We want to kind of avoid that spot right there at the gum line because we don't want a disc or jewelry directly against that, causing problems. Most people can get this piercing done. The one thing I will tell you is if you plan on wearing rings in this at any point in time, along with any other piercings I've mentioned, you do want to talk to your piercer about that to make sure that they're leaving it or doing it high enough on the mouth that a ring will comfortably fit in there, because the ring will always have to be big enough to wrap all the way around. Next one is beauty marks, and that's done right up in here in this area, usually perpendicular or lined up with the nose, either on this side or this side. Generally, the right side is referred to as the Madonna, and the left side is referred to as the Monroe. If you go into a shop and you can't remember which is which, just point. They'll know what you're talking about. With this, we generally pierce them a little bit above the gum line. We do want to have that kind of outward swoop area where it kind of goes out, so there's room back there for the jewelry. We don't want to do these too high where it's directly always going to be in contact. We want to kind of do them a little bit lower. Most people do have the anatomy for this. It's rare that I'll come across somebody where I'm like, this is probably not the best piercing for you, but most people have that anatomy. The next one is a Medusa, done dead center right here in the Cupid bow, that little kind of indentation. It's basically the sibling to the labret or lobret. Basically kind of the same thing. As far as anatomy and etc., we try to get this as dead center as possible. We want to avoid the tendon that's there, the phelonium tendon that's on the top of your mouth. We want to definitely pierce below that. We don't want to pierce through it. The other thing is that with this one, it's rare that we come across somebody that the tendon is that far down, but every once in a while I have seen them where they're almost connected all the way down here. With this one, you want to definitely look at the piercing carefully, make sure it looks centered, not only up close like this, but also from a natural distance that you see people from. It may look straight like this, but it may not look straight like that. And it's the same thing whenever you're looking at positions of any piercing. Next one is the vertical labre. It is done through the lip so that the top ball is just outside where the lips come together and the bottom ball is just below, kind of in that same spot that we do lip piercings. These are done straight up and down to give it that, usually with curve, well, only with curve barbells. The biggest thing with this one is also check to make sure it looks, in fact, straight. They can tend to migrate a little bit this way or that way, but for the most part, they'll stay where they're at. So that one's right there. Anatomy-wise, we just want to make sure there's a natural curvature and there's enough tissue there to comfortably connect or support the jewelry. We also want to make sure that it doesn't interrupt eating too much. We don't want to go into the mouth where it will probably bump into teeth a lot. We want it more outside the mouth. The next one is the justrum. Justrums are done on the top lip. They're the sibling to the vertical labre, done either off to the side or dead center. With these, basically the same thing. The reason why some people cannot get that one done is they don't have this natural outward curvature like this. Their top lip is more flat or thin. When they're flat or thin, we can't really anchor it in enough tissue, and we can't keep it away from the teeth. Next up is the cheek piercing, or dimples. Done right out to the outside of the mouth, done in alignment with the okay. Sometimes I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah. It's done in alignment with the teeth. Usually about the first or second molar, there's usually kind of a thinning area right there, basically where that muscle tissue thins out, kind of a hollow spot. That's where we want it. Not everybody has that, and that's why I no longer offer this piercing on a regular basis, because it's just one of those piercings where I got tired of turning people away because I didn't feel their anatomy was suitable for the piercing. Also, because we're organic and not perpendicular, sometimes it's difficult to line up those piercings so that they match without putting them in a more dangerous situation of causing enamel erosion, gum erosion, and softening of bones inside your mouth. So it's one of those piercings I would consider a high-risk piercing, but it's fairly common and a lot of people have healed it out. The other major risk with this, and the next one I'm going to talk about, the Delas piercings, is possibly the piercing will go into the saliva ducts. Once it's inside there, it can cause saliva to leak out of the piercings permanently. Even if you remove the jewelry and abandon the piercing, it can cause that problem. So take that into consideration. Know your risks before you get that piercing done. And it's definitely not a piercing that I would suggest if you're new to piercing to get done. Dahlias are basically the same thing, except they're done in the corners of the mouth. This is one of those piercings that you really do have to have that anatomy for. There has to be that hollowness, but it has to be that muscle tissue has to stop far enough back that piercings can be anchored without your body easily rejecting them. Oftentimes, these will reject, causing a slit scar, a Joker scar, some people call them, a Chelsea smile. It's not something that I guess if you want that, it's a good idea, but if you don't want that, this is a piercing to stay away from. It's really, really, you have to just have the right anatomy for it. Now I'm going to switch over to this model and try to make it so that you can actually see it. These were a lot smaller than I thought they were going to be. Midline tongue piercings. They're done dead center in the tongue. We want to avoid this tendon that's on the underside. So often what we'll ask when you come in to look at it is to flip the tip of your tongue up. What we're looking at is where that fold is, and we pierce at an angle through that fold. We do it at the angle of that natural curvature, I should say. Dead center is the most common piercing you can do on a tongue. It is between the two large muscle groups that you have, or muscles, one on each side, that move the tongue independently and cause you to be able to twist and do all that fun stuff. You can do it with your tongue to make noises and eat things and move them around in your mouth. The other one is the Venom. The Venom is done off center between that tendon area or center area and the large blood vessels that tend to be on the underside of your tongue. It's very important that you avoid those vessels because it can cause long-term bleeding and bleeding in some cases that will not stop. It is through muscle. They're more difficult to heal out. They're more prone to swelling. There's a whole load of problems with them. I have had one or two clients that the area between the two muscles was just big enough to allow for that, but that is an extremely rare situation. And that's the Venom piercing. Now we're going to talk about Ferium piercings, piercings that are done through webbing or behind that Ferium tendon. We have 3 of them in your mouth. One on, let me make sure I got the top. One on the top, one on the bottom, and one on the bottom of your tongue. So the first one being the smiley is done inside the mouth, usually with circular jewelry or a curved barbell through that tendon on the between your gums or between your teeth and your lip. Basically, it's one of those piercings that you have jewelry in contact with teeth and gums, so that may lead to issues. You have the problem of plaque collecting on it and then agitating it, and it gets very inflamed 2-3 years into. It is a high-maintenance piercing that has high risk. What we want to look for anatomy-wise, even though it's one I don't offer, I know these things. You want to make sure that there is enough room behind the tendon to secure it correctly. It should not be pierced through that tendon, and if that tendon, there isn't enough room, it will reject. Frowny is on the bottom. Basically the same thing, except it's done on the bottom. With those, looking for the same anatomy issues and placement. With the tongue webbing, basically it's done through that web on the bottom of your tongue behind that tendon. Usually all of these are done either with circular jewelry or a straight or curved barbell. Placement, they generally want to try to put them far enough back, especially with the tongue webbing. You don't want to put it too far back to the point where it's uncomfortable and you can't see it, but you definitely want to make sure it's behind that tendon and in deep enough tissue that it's not going to easily reject. And now we're going to talk about what I consider high-risk piercings, extreme piercings, or rare anatomy piercings. The first one being the Ashley. I'm not a fan of the Ashley. If you watched any of my videos, you already know why. And to me, it seems like somebody did Libre wrong, and then the girl came back named Ashley and said, "Why is my piercing so screwed up?" And they said, "We did that just for you. What's your name?" "Oh, it's called an Ashley piercing now." Basically, they are done through the lip, kind of midway, usually dead center on the bottom. The problems with them is how that jewelry lays in there and whether or not that disc is going to comfortably sit in there. I've had a lot of people that I've talked to that said it cut in and wasn't very comfortable. The other issue is catching it on teeth and etc. It's one of those piercings that you need to have the correct anatomy for, and you need to find somebody that has a lot of experience doing them. The next one is a tongue piercing. It is called a scoop piercing. And a scoop piercing is done as a surface-to-surface piercing from here to here on the tongue. Let's see if we can get that to from here to here. So it's done like this way. Just under the surface of the tongue, thus it's scooped. These are prone to rejection and migration. Not really what I would consider a normal piercing everybody gets. So if you're thinking about getting it done, really do your research. Find out find a piercer that has a lot of experience doing surface-to-surface piercings. It is definitely, and most of the things on this list, I wouldn't suggest for your first piercing. Now the one that everybody loves to call every shop in town and ask if they do, snake eye piercings. Snake eye piercings are done through the tip of the tongue, right at the very tip, horizontally. The reason why this has so many problems and why I don't advise getting it done is that you are tying both of your muscles together, which will affect how you can eat, talk, and etc. You are also putting a piece of metal right at the tip of your tongue to come in contact with front teeth and gums and everything else. It is asking for issues. Usually with that piercing, It kind of goes away, and it's not a new thing. Everybody thinks it's like, oh, it just came about. No, it's been around for a long time. It kind of goes away because people usually have it for a few weeks. The novelty wears off, and the annoyance just gets to a point where they're like, I'm done with this. So don't waste your money. There are a few people I've come across, I'd say 1 out of 50 that I've seen with this piercing that seem to be able to tolerate the piercing and have the anatomy for it. I'm guessing they have a lot of extra room in the front of their mouth. Their tongue isn't quite as long and as wide. But it's just one of those piercings that I don't really advise, especially if you're new to piercing and you haven't healed out any oral piercings. It's the last thing you want to get for your first piercing. It'll be a miserable experience, and you probably won't get any more piercings after that. Next one is the horizontal labrae. I've seen these done on the top and the bottom. They're basically done horizontally. They are a surface-to-surface piercing. They are high-risk piercing for rejection. I would assume that the curvature of your lip has a lot to do with whether or not these stay. Also, having that anatomy to support it, and finding the right piercer with the right amount of experience with surface-to-surface piercings. Understand, there is such a high risk for surface-to-surface piercings. In most cases, it's going to eventually reject. So you need to treat it like any surface-to-surface piercing should be treated as a temporary thing. And the last one. I did this one years and years ago and went, that was a waste of time. The tip of the tongue, usually done vertically, and it's done with a ring or circular jewelry or a straight barbell. I tried this one at one point for about a day. It was uncomfortable, annoying, and not fun. That ring got caught in absolutely everything. It was gross. I just gave up on it immediately. Also, when it's that far forward, I could constantly hear that metal knocking against my front teeth, and it just I don't advise it. I guess if you have a lot of room up there and you're not touching your tongue to your teeth, might work, but otherwise I wouldn't advise it. Well, that's it. I've gone through the oral piercings, the kind of the foundation ones that all the bites are based off of. We're going to go through bites next episode. If you have any of these piercings, what was your experience like? I'm very curious, especially with the more extreme piercings. What were your experiences like so that you can share them with other people? Also, if you have any questions about any of these piercings, please leave a comment and let me know, and I'll try to answer it. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings will ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we will see you we might both see you in the next video.